Welcome to the Eating at a Meeting podcast. I'm your host, Tracy Stuckrath, dietary needs expert, certified meetings manager, certified food protection manager. I have searched the globe to find people and businesses who are creating safe, sustainable, and inclusive food and beverage experiences for their employees, guests, and communities. In each episode, you will find authentic conversations about how food and beverage impacts inclusion, sustainability, culture, community, health, and wellness. I know that sounds like a lot, but we're going to cover it all. Are you ready to feed engagement, nourish inclusion, and bolster your bottom line? If so, let's go.
Hey, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Eating at a Meeting. I am your host, Tracy Stuckrath, and I am excited to bring to you this week. It is Food Waste Prevention Week, and I'm very excited to talk to you about a completely different aspect of meetings and events, and it's sustainable cruising. And how do we tackle food waste with IoT and AI innovations? And that's why I have this expert with me today, Robert Buchanan. He is lucky to be a husband to an amazing wife. He's the father of two amazing boys. He's an inspirational, mission-driven founder and CEO of a leading-edge food technology startup focused on reducing food loss and reinforcing sustainability in food cargo to create a cleaner, waste-free future. And that's a lot that we're going to unpack right now, but welcome to the show, Robert.
Oh, thank you so much, Tracy, for having me. We're excited to be here to share more about the cruise industry and how ambitious they are to reducing food waste to reach net zero. So
that's really exciting. Well, and just before we got on the show, you were talking to me about, and I want to start this off just randomly now, is that cruise ships in the production of the cruise ship in general is very sustainable already. So can you talk a little bit about that and then how you got into this aspect of it?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, the cruise ship industry is leading edge. They always have been. Out of all the maritime vessels on the sea, they're definitely the most sustainable. They have so many systems that they have to incorporate to be able to pull off something like a cruise with passengers, that they're basically floating cities with an entire set of systems on board to cultivate a beautiful experience with sustainability in mind the entire time. For us, we got into the cruise industry because we were looking around different industries of who have food waste issues that our technology could really be of aid with. And the cruise industry has solved many big challenges along the way, but this is one of those that still has a lot of opportunity left to help them out. And so we got involved with them about 2 years ago to be able to carve out our place in being able to have a positive impact for them. So,
okay, so what is ADHERE GEAR? And then before we talk into exactly what what you're doing to help them, let's talk about the impact. Like we were talking before the show, how much food there actually is and how much waste.
Yeah, absolutely. So the cruise industry, on average, it's about 30% per vessel per week. So a higher end
that's
cruise
waste. Right.
Well, yeah, how much waste is created. So, or product that is lost, put it that way.
Okay.
So they'll spend about a couple $1 million plus purchasing food for that week for the cruise. And then by the end of the week, they have a 30% margin of loss that occurs. So for us, our technology and ADHERE GEAR focuses on using IoT devices, so Internet of Things, paired with artificial intelligence and some other technological features that help them to reduce those losses. Our main focus is through continuous monitoring. So we use the concept of, hey, if you were able to know the condition of your food from the moment you receive it, watch it along the way as it works its way towards waste. And this helps the cruise industry to create opportunities they didn't have before of how to use the food during certain conditions to avoid waste. So by the time it reaches waste, they know why it happened, how to avoid it next time, and how to use this product up so it doesn't actually reach what's called fish food ultimately. So,
okay, so when you're talking about that, and I'm thinking of that waste before it gets to be waste, it reminds me of the arugula and the spinach leaves that are in the middle of the package, that clear box. Yeah. So your technology can actually track when those leaves are starting to get yucky.
Yeah, so what we're doing, it's actually quite amazing what you can do with sensors. And that's one of the things that we dabble in and educate a little bit, is that something as simple as temperature or humidity, it goes beyond just, hey, what's the temperature outside? You can actually use that data to make correlations with other things. A really big example, this is, a Fitbit or a smartwatch. They take very basic sensors that are used in a lot of other technologies, but they take the data and use it to map out, hey, what would the heart rate be if it were matched up with something like temperature? And so because of that, you can really create some amazing correlations that you otherwise couldn't before. So it's really big for us on what we're offering. So sensors include ethanol, CO2, oxygen level, humidity, pressure, all the things as if you were babysitting that food inside of a greenhouse, watching its process. So.
Well, and then that makes me, because you're talking about humidity and variety, and like if a cruise ship is going from one city to another, you're going to be going through different temperatures on the outside. How does that, you have to really maintain that as well inside so that it's like measuring, like the temperature changes here, 70 to 54 in a day, right?
What we're building is a system that allows you to look at it on an individualistic level. So what is the optimal conditions of spinach versus the optimal conditions for broccoli? And then what we're doing is we're comparing those results in our software to understand, is that food and what it's sensing, is it optimal or is it below grade? And very powerful because all foods emit a different numerical value, basically.
Okay.
They all have different levels of CO2 when they begin to degrade. Some of them emit ethylene. Something like bananas, when they begin to really become super ripe, they emit massive levels of ethylene. And not only do they emit levels of ethylene, but they also are kind of in charge of other foods around it. So if you have peppers or other fruits and vegetables around bananas, it'll actually trigger them to begin to degrade as well, which is very interesting, the correlation of this hierarchy of foods and how they are when they're grouped together. So this is a very scientific approach that we're taking to reducing what and using sensors and then the internet basically to send the data. So,
and all right, I want to go back to the problem too in the numbers. So 30% of waste, food waste, and I know that number is very global in scale and from farm to table, et cetera, all the way around the world. But when we're talking about on a cruise, and we were talking about smaller footprints from a barefoot cruise all the way up to a 5,000 person cruise, how many lobsters or how many watermelons or how many pieces of different types of food are on a cruise ship every single week? Right. And to just show the loss.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's so 30%, to put that into some context. So 250,000 eggs in a week are consumed. If you look at it from chicken breasts, or let's take lobster, for example, that's a high price item, but easily can clear 3,000 to 5,000 lobster in that one day just to satisfy passenger count. So in a 7-day cruise, you can imagine that the volume is quite massive. And what's interesting is cruise ships are very meticulous and they take the highest regard for high quality food. And that includes in the prep and the storage. So all the breads for the most part are freshly made. All the meats, they're not typically frozen. They're fresh and cooked to order. So this is very fitting for the type of technology we're offering to be able to continuously monitor these fresh food products that are used on a daily basis. So.
And that's really, it's a scratch kitchen, it sounds like, pretty much.
Yeah. It's amazing orchestration too. You'll have 1,000 to 2,000 chefs on board a cruise ship.
Wow.
Preparing up to a couple 100,000 meals in a week. Way more volume than a hotel or a typical restaurant will ever produce in a week.
Or even a convention center. Yeah. That's crazy. Yeah. So how did you get into this? What inspired you to do this?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's interesting. The backstory is coming from some inspiration on the personal side. So I've had to live with Internet of Things devices on myself every day since I was 10 years old. And so I wear 3 different sensors on me that collect data and send them to me to monitor my glucose, insulin levels, a variety of other metrics that help me to stay healthy. On top of that, there's 3 decades of experience there dealing with food. And so we take those two and pair them together, Internet of Things and technology and sensors paired with food and nutrition and wellness and understanding how food affects the body. And you end up with this company, co-founded this company called ADHERE GEAR that really has this really interesting mix of experiences packed in there. So it's a very dear and true story on how to get to this point, but taking something that was quite a long time ago and taking that experience to build something out. So.
Well, and then how did the waste aspect of that come into that? That's really interesting too, because based on what you were saying, I mean, that's monitoring your personal medical conditions, right? Biological conditions. But this is now looking at a waste. And if you're looking at a cargo ship, and I did send you an email, and like that ship in Baltimore probably needs your sensors right now. But how many of those sensors are in a refrigerator or in one of those cargo things to do this?
Yeah, so the food waste side is a deep passion. All these are deep passions shared amongst the team. It's a team of 3 of us. And but food waste is a big deal for us. We really want to contribute what we can as a team, given our expertise with internet and sensors. And James and Jason are exceptionally good at network communications and computer communications. And when you pair that with a passion, one, to see the world be more sustainable and reduce its food loss, it just kind of was a perfect fit for us to enter the cruise industry and to focus on that problem. So I'd say it's a group effort of all of us just sharing this deep passion for our food sustainability and wanting to see that.
That's awesome. So when we're looking at the sensors and such, I'm assuming that you've got some good results from doing this. So can you share? I mean, and I like when I read it somewhere, it was your technology is helping reduce loss, which is money, save food, so that you can feed people, and then eliminate carbon. So I think that pairs very well with not just the food, the cruise lines, but I mean, we don't want to waste food because it's, to me, in a meeting planner's eyes, that's my budget. And on the chef's side, that's their budget, right? But how, I forgot my original.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. So we've approached the technology with circular economics is a big deal for us as well. So this start of what does our technology address now and what can it address in the future? So right off the bat, our goal is to grade food and the quality of food, and that hits very hard on quality assurance and quality control for the food industry. After that, though, when you start to overlay things like artificial intelligence to do analytics, you begin to have a very big effect on operations and logistics on the supply chain, because now you have data that you can analyze and see trends in forecasting. And that's very powerful too. And then lastly, to end that circular economic model, it says, okay, if 1 pound of food waste is equivalent, it creates directly 0.70 pounds of CO2. So that means it's very clear that if we save food, we reduce carbon by default, and a direct correlation. And so we looked at it and said, okay, we can hit all these areas. The first one is a given because it solves a problem. Right. And the other problems, they just get solved along the way. And I think that's one of the things that's really important for technology to do, is to have your current plan, but also how does it unfold in the future to create even bigger impact over time. So,
well, because then I can see it being applied across the board and across the food industry supply chain, not just on the cruise lines. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, there's definitely a broader application in the supply chain to really bring more resiliency to how we move food using data. In the past, we've moved food using last known location, or it might be based on speed and time. I have to get it there overnight. I think now the industry is realizing that we need to focus more on sustainability, and that means measuring different things that we've never measured before in order to accomplish that kind of model. So.
All right. And I want to go back to something you just said, but I want to go back to the question that I just remembered. But finding you've had results and seeing how this works. Can you give some examples on how that has helped a cruise line or another client, like, see the reduce in loss?
Yeah, absolutely. So we're just now entering the next phase of testing. We've been testing as a team for about 2.5 years. It's been a little while. So we've done so many different tests on the technology, building it out. along the way. We've tested communications from Singapore to the States. We do testing between Alaska and the U.S. We did testing of signal strength and relaying of data and communications, taking a train from across the United States from Oregon all the way to Rhode Island. And now recently we've done tests from the U.S. to Europe and also all the way down to the Canary Islands outside of Morocco. So a lot of testing that we've done to really find and source the right hardware, the right firmware development, testing our software against it. We still have a lot of work to do, so there's no question about that. But we're very excited about where we are with those results and successfully seeing them relayed in different places around the world. So when Jason, who lives in Alaska, sees the results and I'm all the way in Spain, that's very exciting for us to know that we're doing it, like we're building this.
Right.
So, yeah.
So, I mean, because that, and so like and I have never been in the backside of a cruise ship before, but I'm just putting my hotel backside of the kitchen in there. How many sensors do you need in a refrigerated unit to keep track of the different foods? And are they tracking different foods? Is each sensor tracking different foods?
Yeah, absolutely. And so a brief background. So I do work in hospitality for 3 years at a resort. So definitely saw the F&B background for 2 restaurants and the resort and everything. So definitely a lot of familiar territory there. In terms of device count, it really comes down to the quantity of food. So it's one device for broccoli. It's another device for chicken. So if they have 30 varieties of foods, then from there it's 30 at minimum. And then how many data sets that we need. So maybe 2 or 3x of that. So a cruise ship, on average, to give a sense of scale, though, will have on the low end 500 pallets of food. So it's quite a big volume, but that gets them through 7 days. So one of those pallets will be all of broccoli, and then they'll have like 5 pallets of ice cream and 6 pallets of eggs. So a lot of different variety, and we tag them using NFC technology, which is RFID, to be able to imprint our data to the cargo itself. So
that's mind-boggling. And are these sensors like going in the corner? I'm being very specific. Are they going in the corner up here? My thing is up here and looking down, or what are they doing?
Oh, no. So, yeah. So one of the things we took a lot of pride on is on our industrial side, making this very easy to adopt. Internet of Things is a very easy play for the world. Smartphones, we can thank them for the legacy they built on the cell phone of allowing us to have strong communications. So the device itself operates on Wi-Fi. So very simple, just like anything else. And it just clips onto the box. So very simple, less than 1 millisecond installation. It's not invasive. And it literally has sensors that face into the food to actually what we would call breathe in the food and sense the different chemicals of the air. So, yeah.
Okay.
It's very rapid.
Okay. And then that sensor just stays on that same box for the whole time.
It stays on it. And if a chef comes in and takes that box of broccoli, he just moves the sensor to the next box below. And it's still just sensing, hey, how's the broccoli doing overall? Like, how are we looking? So.
And what has the response been from the chefs?
Yeah, so I got lucky. I've got a couple of chefs from before from hospitality, so that was always helpful. And then, in general, the cruise ships and the F&B are very excited. I mean, this is being able to understand the condition of broccoli when it's perfect for and the right crispness to serve, but then there's a certain condition that says, hey, now it needs to actually become broccoli soup. And so that's our goal, is to be able to grade these foods for them. And ultimately in the future, if we're lucky, be able to offer analytics that say it should be broccoli soup or these other 20 dishes that we suggest based on the current condition. This creates amazing resiliency for sustainability of the food, because that means if you can use up all food by the time it reaches like a grade B or C and trying to avoid that waste, that means you can actually see a path to net zero. Like you can actually visualize that.
Yeah. Well, and there was a conversation in my Facebook group, Eating at a Meeting, today about food waste. I posed the question, what are you doing? How are you talking to your chefs about that? Right. And somebody said, well, I'm asking who are they partnered with to donate leftovers after the fact? But it really does come down to asking the questions, what are you doing up front to reduce waste before it even gets to what you're making? And are you using this potato peels and the broccoli stems to make some kind of fun soup or crudité or something, right? That it's not being thrown in the potato skins are not being thrown in the trash. Is that the waste? Is that the potato skins part of that 30% waste?
Yeah, I mean, the cruise industry, and to mention a few things. So the cruise industry, I got lucky and was introduced to a lot of CLIA members recently through Ocean Exchange, amazing organization down in Florida, doing a lot of philanthropic work for the marine environment, for technology and advancement for our oceans. And CLIA is the Cruise Line International Association, and they have a very big circular economic model for their food waste. So they take a lot of pride in that. They do have certain organizations they donate foods to as long as it's the right conditions. And so that's very exciting for us to pair something like what we're working on with things that they've already deployed within their networks and to take that to the next level. So there's a lot of food sustainability that they do have on board. I mean, there's no question. They've got smart garbage cans with artificial intelligence. They use a lot of metering in the kitchen, but you're absolutely right. Addressing it from the cargo hold or when it's loaded is one of those preemptive strikes. It's one of those says there is a way to be very proactive with this and then let it trickle along the way towards the end of that model. And that's what we're addressing is the first moment you get the food, let's start reducing waste before it's waste. So
exactly. Well, now I'm going to jump ahead and like, okay, if they know who they're ordering it from, can they put the sensor on it from the point where they order it and then it's delivered from the truck to them? Because there's a few days in between that, I'm sure.
Yeah, there is a version of that. Right now, our model's focusing solely on the cruise ships,
right?
With the logistics that the cruise ships have and how they operate. There is a future model where the vendors may end up using the technology or where the cruise ships may require them to use it in advance so they can guarantee the quality control, quality assurance of the products that we see. But for now, it is a cruise ship-based technology. And the mission and the goal there is to prove out the technology's value to the world and this industry first and let it happen.
Yeah. Because I do think there's lots of conversations about the entire supply chain from farm all the way to execution. And I'm going to say you didn't start with a small little industry just to tackle this with.
It was tough. We analyzed aviation. They don't like batteries. Questionable.
Okay.
It's being electrified anyways with all electric planes, but so there'll be a time for that, but it looks like there's still a little ways off. We looked at rail and then we looked at truck and then we looked at maritime. Being that maritime makes up 90 to 95% of all products being moved, and then the food all mostly is maritime, we decided that was going to be our sweet spot, was going to be cruise ships within maritime. So.
Okay. Well, okay. A lot of food being maritime, you mean in cargo containers or on ships?
On the cruise ships, yeah.
That's on the cruise ships. Okay.
Yeah, on the ships, yeah. That's going to be the easiest way for us to prove everything out. So.
Okay. So, and the companies themselves that own the ships and their chefs and their staff are really intrigued by all of this. And CLIA, they were excited about your presentation?
Yes. Yeah. The presentation in Italy, such a big thank you from Ocean Exchange because they really pushed hard to get us the right introductions and get us in front of the right people. It went phenomenal. It's one of those things where we don't usually do trade shows. We're not very big into, unless we have something really valuable. And we spent a couple of years to make sure we built something that we felt was going to be worth presenting to them and be very innovative, outside the box type of thinking. And the response was exactly that they never, a lot of them, it was a little bit of an aha moment that there's so much information sitting there in front of them that they didn't know they could capitalize on and use to their advantage to making improvements to logistics and operations of the food management. We're also tackling empowering Starlink communications and then furthering their investment in that, which is very big. So instead of it just being for communications, now we're actually saying, hey, it can apply to food and beverage, how to use this amazing opportunity with reliable communications wirelessly to really push something like food monitoring to a new level. So,
and I haven't been on a cruise in a long time, and it's been a long time, but how robust? I mean, you've got 5,000, I'm assuming they're internet on the cruise ship is more robust since the 15 years ago that I was on a cruise, then you're adding this technology to it that's taking some of that bandwidth. So will that be a technological challenge for the cruise ships going?
So that's one of the reasons why we entered the cruise industry. So the average person will carry between 5 and 7 Internet of Things devices on them when they travel.
What?
Yeah, it's crazy. It's a big number. So you got your laptop, your smartphone, your watch, and probably another tablet just because you want to be your Fire Kindle plus your Google. It's like all this crazy stuff. And then once you get into families, I mean, it's a lot of devices.
Right.
And so these cruise ships, they know bandwidth-wise, the average person is going to be bringing this number. If they're catering to 3,000 to 6,000 passengers, that is a very massive amount of devices to cater towards. So for us, we're bringing in only a couple thousand devices on a ship, on a network that's built to be amazing at managing these. Starlink is definitely the current and the future for telecom. And we built in line with that, knowing that IoT was going to be a big deal. It's the ships have done a great job advancing communications. At this point, a majority of the industry of these cruise lines and their vessels operate on Starlink communications, and they've already been outfitted or in the process of being outfitted. So it tells you how reliable the network is that all the major brands are in alignment to outfit their vessels with that technology. So
that's awesome. Because heaven forbid you're on vacation and you need to use your 8 devices, right? And your Kindle you can't read, or you can read when the sun's out, right? Okay, we talked a little bit about they just have to put the sensor on the box. And you talked about, hey, there's this data in front of them. What has been the biggest aha moment when they realize that this data is there and that they should be measuring this?
Yeah, so there's, for a little while there, things like GPS, temperature, those have been there for a couple decades now. It's not anything new. What is new is being able to use more than just those data sets. So what we offer is quite a suite of different measurements that you typically wouldn't find in some other products that offer something just like GPS or temperature. And this is a big aha moment for them, realizing that's where the technology is, that you can get a large spread of data all from just one box of broccoli. And then what that means when you tag all your stuff. Some industries have mastered this already. Industries and logistics like Amazon and stuff, they know this, and their warehouses are outfitted with similar sensors and robotics and stuff. But for the cruise industry, this is very exciting for them to see that they can match Internet of Things with all the other advancements that they've made on board in their other systems. Right. Really push this to a new level. So,
okay. And who knew you could really track the growth of broccoli or the spoiling of broccoli, right? Okay. A couple of questions that I had asked you in advance too is, what is an example of a situation that has negatively affected your food and beverage experience? What did you gain from that, and that maybe you're applying to what you're doing with ADHERE GEAR?
Absolutely. Yeah, it's a good question. So it kind of relates to the inspirational side of founding of the company. Coming in as an insulin-dependent diabetic, my whole life, that meant that I'm very aware of food quality and also how it's processed. And I constantly have to measure its effect on me when I consume it. So whenever I go into a restaurant or I go into anywhere else and it's processed food, it does have a negative experience for me by default. It's just one of those things. I've been in hospitality, so I've had the places I worked at where it's fresh food, and I've had the ones where it's totally not. And I, still had to serve it up. So I've seen both sides. And it was always tough for me as a consumer entering those spaces and not having much variety on the fresh side. So something like this technology says, hey, maybe there's a way that, all food can really push towards being fresh. Maybe continuous monitoring of food might be just the thing, so that we can get away from food that has massive amount of preservatives or other chemicals that don't actually benefit the body on any level and actually wreak havoc and cause other conditions to come out. So we're really excited about long-term implications of deploying something like this into the cruise industry and in the future, a broader logistics side of the industry. to really help with pushing for cleaner, safer, better food to consume. And then it's transparency. The data being collected shows and reflects the quality of the food. And then if it's questioned, there will be a fresh set of results that come in 5 minutes later. So it's like, it's reinforced validity. So it really helps with that continuous aspect to know that it's letting you know if it's still good or not. So, yeah.
Well, and just the transparency in our food and beverage. And I know that's been something that's been talked about for a long time, getting it from farm to table and identifying when there's an outbreak, right? Like even the outbreak that's being announced this week about the bird flu, right? With a farm in Michigan and a farm in Texas production facility shutting down because of that. But that's this technology, when we're thinking about it, of the Internet of Things and AI, that could actually help prevent some of those things.
Yeah, absolutely. It's really where artificial intelligence will shine a lot. Is when one of the things when we did the testing from southern Spain to the Canary Island, just the data collected from that small cruise, which is a 4-day round trip cruise, about 140 pages of data. So what that means is that artificial intelligence is going to be able to go through and skim all this and find patterns of value. We like to break it down to 3 basic sections. There's pattern recognition, pattern utilization, and then pattern creation. The first step for us as a company and to make an impact is going to be in pattern recognition. We want to find those patterns. Right. Ultimately, after that, artificial intelligence will do utilizing these patterns to make improvements to logistics and operations. And then ultimately, that'll lead to pattern creation, where we say, hey, there's a better way of doing this. Let's create those patterns now. So we're really excited about that.
I was going to say, because also giving a chef a 140-page document worth of data, how do they... That's a whole new brain usage, not to discount chefs, but it's an analytical thing versus a creative cooking thing. So it can condense that data into a report that's edible.
Well, exactly.
Unintended.
Yes.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, because it takes that information and can condense it. Okay, so where do you see this going in the future? And I think I saw on one of your Instagram posts that there's a cruise that's going around the world. Somebody posted that. So is your data going to be on that? Your technology going to be on there?
I mean, we haven't had those conversations yet. One of those where very powerful crews to go around the world and be monitoring like that. Right now in the industry, it's 3, 5, 7, 12-day cruises. So those year-long continuous cruises are a little bit different. But there is a stretch goal to reach something like that. The further that we can reach that, the quicker it could have an impact on something broader than just cruise ships because of the testing of longevity built into that. Our mission and our focus is really to just figure out how to utilize all our resources and tools that we've built to reduce this food loss by 50% plus. We feel that if we can nail that, then it gives a blueprint on how to get to net zero. One of the things that we really, in a lot of conversations, discovered was that there's a lot of people who want to reach net zero, but there's not a lot of really good plans that you can actually execute on. And we feel like the data that we collect is going to be so valuable to be able to actually create these benchmarks and then watch the benchmarks be achieved, that something like a 2030 or 2040 goal for some of these cruise ships can actually be attainable and actually be accomplished. And that'll serve as a template for all of maritime at that point and anything related, showing that these cruise ships have become so ridiculously sustainable on all fronts, including their food loss, that everyone will take notice and want to take some notes and figure out how to utilize that information.
Or go live on a boat.
Right, or go live on a ship. Some people do.
They do. I have heard stories that, like, retirees, that's what they're doing instead. If I didn't get sick from riding on a boat, I would probably be there too. Yeah. Okay, so there's so much we can dive into this. And what do you want the people who were not at CLIA, and didn't hear your presentation, what would you say to them today and to get them on board?
Yeah, I would say that for those that are doing technology, I think it's important for them to be very sure that they incorporate artificial intelligence and think hard about it and how it will play a role, because it's so important as a line item to know. I'd also say to those that are going to use the technology, such as the cruise ships, to lean on companies like ours to provide that insight on how to use these tools. These tools being created by all of us, it's very important to use them wisely and use them in a way that's going to be beneficial and impactful for everybody. And I think we're a good example of the direction of what we're going for with all this. But it does require some education, just basically talking through how do you use this technology to your advantage. So definitely encouraging those companies to reach out to us or others like us to be able to share the insight of how this stuff actually works. There's a lot of predated information there that people think on how technology used to work versus how it works now. And it's very different on how it works now. They've probably seen that just in the evolution of podcasting and how that's changed, and very powerful and how quickly it changes too. So,
oh yeah. And I don't even go to podcasts. I just love chatting with a variety of different people on these things. And when you were talking about that and this service this product that you've designed, I know you've had hospitality experience, but how do you the chef speak or the food speak to the people that are doing that when you're bringing this technology in and they're like, no, this is a thing of broccoli. I'm going to cook with the broccoli, right? Where did you get that food speak?
Yeah, that's a great question. So it is multiple languages for sure. One of the things that we've really focused on is thinking through what language transcends all cultures, as well as all types of employments and is different job roles that we have to have conversations with. And it turned out it's iconic. Anything with pictures. So think about it like in the sense of when you go to the grocery store and you're swiping your groceries or you're weighing your broccoli, you don't really need the word broccoli. You just need the picture. And it doesn't matter where you are or what language you speak, you know what broccoli looks like. And so that's kind of our approach, is to always engineer our software, our firmware, and our hardware to be very universal in its response, no matter who we're sitting down with. And that includes the chefs, of showing them the things that they need to see that are valuable to them. And then when we sit down with the procurement officers or the VPs of procurement or anybody that's doing the inventory management, what is the data that's useful for them? And so we engineer our software to only show them the parts that they really would want to see. And that makes it very useful for them. So they can really focus and they see, this is for me, this is clearly made for me. But it's interesting because all the data is the same. It's just how you present it. And so that's one of the things that we're really good at. So,
well, that reminds me of a conversation that I had with Aurora Dawn Benton, who's another food waste prevention advocate. And when she goes in, she's done a couple of different things with the World Wildlife Fund. And she takes pictures of the butter pats or the extra syrup or whatever, and she shows them, this is what's getting thrown away. And that picture speaks more volumes to them than saying, oh, well, you threw away 250 pats of butter, right? Well, you don't know. You can see it, or even a picture that she and I both took at a convention, all the pieces of cake that were left on the table, and just taking the picture from above that didn't get eaten. That's all that waste. And so, but you're doing it from the front end versus that back end.
Yeah, it's such good examples. Yeah, like they say, a picture speaks 1,000 words. It's more powerful to show using images as a way to show people the value in things, because you get a lot more information out of that. So that's definitely our goal.
Okay, cool. All right. So one final question. Well, two final questions. What impact do you hope to have on the world with ADHERE Gear?
Yeah, so our broader impact, our team we're such suckers for philanthropy. Like, we really care a lot about it. And there's two things that are a big deal for us. One is food waste, and the other is homelessness, and under places that just don't have the right opportunities to lift themselves up. So our goal is, on the technological side, is to be able to reduce this food loss and show that Internet of Things has the ability to solve this problem. And then on the philanthropic side, our goal is to take some of our winnings and be able to create homes and opportunities for homeless people back on their feet. So that's been a big underlying theme for us since the day all three of us met each other. And so that's the impact we'd like to see. Is we'd like we'd like to see something like 100,000, 150, 200,000 homes given away on our walk. And then at the same time, build some serious resiliency and sustainability to the food. So that's what we'd like to do.
That's very admirable, because when people have food to eat and a place to call home, whatever it is, that can actually bolster so much more in that person.
Yes, absolutely.
And make society better.
Yes, yeah. And then we'd love to just take that model and share it and say, who wants to repeat it, copy it, whatever you want to do. Right. The more that we can spread this, the better. So,
okay, awesome. All right. So my final question that I ask every guest in closing is, what does, and I think you've answered this in so many different ways today, but what does a safe, sustainable, and inclusive food and beverage experience look like to you?
Yeah. So to me, if I take it on a personal level, I'd like to know what I'm eating at all times. I'd really like to know that. And I would consider myself an expert in labels and such, just because of my background, what I've had to do, counting carbs and calories and proteins and all this crazy stuff on a daily basis for 30 plus years. You get pretty good at understanding that. And I still, to this day, I'm like, still not sure, because it's still not 100% of what I'd like to see in the transparency side. Mm-hmm. So I think something like we're doing can help bring that next wave of clarity for everyone, at least when they're on a cruise ship. They work really hard to save up to go on these amazing adventures. Mm-hmm. And I think one of the great adventures they could have is having this beautiful experience with their food and knowing how it's graded in the quality, not just in flavor, but even in information in some sort of way, in a quick picture that would give them confidence that this is something that's great for them. I think that would be a really nice thing I'd like to see. So
awesome. Well, thank you very much for what you're doing. And it really thrills me and makes me very happy that you're using a personal experience to do something better for the world.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Tracy, for having us on. I appreciate it. I'm really looking forward to the next steps with your organization. I loved seeing the different things you guys have done, and look forward to working with you in the future as well.
No, let's do it. Let's do it. Now, how does everybody get a hold of you if they want to hire you, et cetera?
Yeah, absolutely. So you can go to ADHEREGEAR.com. That great snapshot about the technology. There's a contact us. That's a great way to reach us. You can also go to us on LinkedIn. We use LinkedIn very heavily as our communications platform, but our website works extremely well. We'd love to work with any other cruise lines that would like to become more sustainable. We're also looking for other partners for partnerships. So please reach out to us and we'll have those exciting conversations. So
I'm getting your LinkedIn and put your LinkedIn in there. I just put it in the chat, and let me just put it on here as well on the screen. All those long LinkedIn little connection things are long. Save and post. There you go. There's your LinkedIn. So ADHERE GEAR Technology /Corporation. So awesome. Well, thank you so much. And let's definitely stay in touch, because this is very intriguing to me. And anything that we can reduce waste to make sure that people are fed and to reduce carbon is a big win yes, all the way around. So I appreciate that. And thank you for everybody who tuned in. We had no questions from the audience today, but thank you so much for listening to us. We really appreciate it. Next week, I am actually, just before Passover, I'm having a kosher food expert come on and talk to us all about kosher. And then we're going to continue the food waste conversation or food sustainability conversation with a special episode on April 11th, which is Global Meetings Industry Day. So I am chatting with IMEX about their food sustainability programs at the convention. So I'm very excited to bring you that. So everybody, until then, stay safe and eat well.
Thanks for listening to the Eating at a Meeting podcast, where every meal matters. I'm Tracy Stuckrath, your food and beverage inclusion expert. Call me and let's get started right now on creating safe and inclusive food and beverage experiences for your customers, your employees, and your communities. Share the podcast with your friends and colleagues at our Eating at a Meeting Facebook page and on all podcast platforms. To learn more about me and receive valuable information, go to tracystuckrath.com. And if you'd like more information on how to feed engagement, nourish inclusion, and bolster your bottom line, then visit eatingatameeting.com.